The scent of fresh garlic bread and simmering marinara filled the small apartment. Cozy but worn from years of life together. On the stove, Julian stirred the sauce, humming softly under his breath. It had been a long day at work, just like all the others, but he made it home early, determined to surprise his wife Isa with her favorite dinner. They hadn't had a real moment together in weeks. Isa was everything to him. 31, brilliant, beautiful, and endlessly ambitious. She was a branding strategist at one of the fastest-growing media firms in the city. Julian, 33, was a project lead for an architecture firm. Less glamorous, more grounded. But he didn't mind. Isa brought sparkle to his steady world. He had no idea that by the end of that dinner, everything he believed about his marriage would begin to crumble. She arrived home late, heels clicking, voice tired, eyes shadowed with something unspoken. Julian kissed her cheek and gestured to the table, candlelit and warm. She smiled, touched but distant. "Smells amazing," she murmured, sitting down. They talked about work, exchanged laughter, drank wine. For a moment, it felt like old times. Then Isa set her glass down and said it so casually, so softly, like a breeze that turns into a storm. "I've been thinking, what if we tried something different? Like an open marriage?" Julian blinked. The words didn't register at first. What? His fork hovered mid-air. "I just think maybe we've fallen into a routine. I want to feel alive again, not just married, you know?" He stared at her, not in anger, in disbelief. She didn't look guilty. If anything, she looked hopeful, like this suggestion was a chance to fix something broken. Julian's voice dropped, steady and serious. "Isa, I love you, but that's not what I signed up for. I don't want to share you. I can't." She looked away, her shoulders stiffening. "I thought you'd say that." Silence hung heavy. Later that night, as Isa slept soundly, Julian sat alone in the dark living room, staring at nothing. Why would she even suggest that? Was it boredom? Regret? Or was there already someone else? Over the next few days, she didn't bring it up again, but she changed. She grew cold, distant. Her smile turned mechanical. She came home later, left earlier, claimed it was work, and maybe it was. But something about her had shifted, like she was living another life just outside his reach. Julian tried to talk to her again, gently asked if she was unhappy. She said she was just going through a phase, that she needed space, that she was overwhelmed by deadlines. But when he held her, she didn't hold him back. When he touched her, she flinched. He noticed things, small things. Her phone never left her side, notifications muted. A new password on her laptop. She started wearing perfume on nights when she claimed to be working late. Her gym bag always packed, but she looked like she hadn't exercised in weeks. And then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday. Julian finished work early. He made lasagna from scratch, Isa's absolute favorite. He messaged her, "Julian, lasagna night. Come home hungry." She replied 10 minutes later, "Isa, ugh, sorry babe, big pitch tomorrow. Might be super late." He waited until midnight. Then, on a strange impulse, he drove to her office. He parked across the street, watching. Her floor was mostly dark. Reception confirmed she'd left hours ago. He drove home in silence. Sick, angry, numb. At 3 a.m., the door creaked open. Isa walked in quietly, tiptoeing like a thief. Julian pretended to be asleep, but his heart was pounding so loudly he thought she'd hear it from across the room. The next morning, she told him she'd been working from a satellite office on the other side of town. She lied with a smile on her lips and no hesitation. And in that moment, something inside Julian snapped. Not in rage, but in clarity. Whatever illusion they'd been living in, it was over. But Julian didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he decided to do something Isa never expected. He watched. Silently. Carefully. Methodically. And while she spiraled deeper into her double life, Julian began crafting something of his own. Not forgiveness, not closure. Julian changed that night, but not in the way Issa might have expected. He didn't rage or accuse. He didn't beg or retreat. He observed. He played his role perfectly. Loving husband, patient listener, busy professional. But beneath the surface, Julian was dissecting every detail of Issa's behavior. He wasn't going to confront her without undeniable proof. Not this time. He started small. A second phone with a new number, used only for investigation. A contact inside Issa's building. Lana, a junior IT tech Julian had helped design the firm's workspace layout for. She owed him a favor. "Don't ask questions," Julian said. "I just need to know when she logs into the system and when she leaves." Lana hesitated, but eventually agreed. "I'll text your timestamps. That's all I'll do." It was all he needed. For 2 weeks, Julian compared Issa's location claims with the firm system logs. More than half the time, she wasn't anywhere near the building. He installed a motion sensor camera inside her car door, synced to his burner phone. Every time she entered or left her vehicle, he received a timestamp photo. Julian didn't want to believe what he already knew. One evening, while Issa showered, Julian copied the contents of her phone to his laptop using software he'd researched obsessively. It didn't break her password. It mirrored her files, messages, photos, cloud syncs. It would take hours to process. He stared at the screen, his stomach twisting. The next morning, while Issa left early for a client brunch, Julian opened the mirror backup. Her messages were fragmented, but enough to tell a story. A horrifying one. There were 3 names, all men, all from work. One stood out. KB, a 25-year-old brand intern fresh out of college. Their chat started innocently, then spiraled into late-night flirting. Emojis, photos, explicit ones, words like wild, secret, nobody has to know. His blood ran cold. And there was more. Photos taken inside hotels, bathrooms, cars, with different men. One thread read, "Caleb, you said it's over with your husband. You sure?" Issa, "Emotionally, yes. Legally, not yet. Caleb." Damn. So he doesn't know? Issa, "Let's keep it that way. He's sweet, but he's stuck in the past." Julian sat still, his breath sharp and erratic. She didn't just cheat. She erased him. He printed everything, built a private folder with copies, password protected, stored it in 2 locations, one for himself, one with his lawyer friend, Armin. "Don't ask," Julian said grimly. "Just keep it safe. If something happens to me, send it to this address." Armin raised an eyebrow. "You good?" Julian's face gave nothing away. "I'm not good, but I'm clear." Now that he had the truth, Julian didn't collapse. He didn't scream. He studied Issa like a predator studies prey. She came home smiling, kissed his cheek, curled beside him on the couch to watch TV, like nothing had happened. Her lies flowed so easily now. They danced off her tongue. That night, Julian couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, his mind spinning with questions. When did I lose her? Was it the moment I said no to the open marriage? Was it before that? Was it always coming? He thought back to their beginning. How they met in a bookstore cafe. How Issa had laughed at his coffee order and ended up stealing half of it. She was reckless, bright, chaotic. Julian had loved her fire, but now he realized fire burns when you're not watching. The next day, he drove an hour out of town to visit someone he hadn't seen in years, his ex, Camille. They had ended on mutual terms, but she had been a therapist in training, someone who understood people better than most. "I need a conversation, not closure," Julian told her. They sat under a tree in the old park they used to walk. Camille listened carefully as Julian detailed everything, down to the text messages and Issa's proposal for an open marriage. "I don't think she wanted freedom," Camille said slowly. "I think she wanted permission." "Permission for what?" "To lie to you and not feel guilty. To cheat and still feel like a good person." That hit him like a blow to the chest. Some people think if they confess beforehand, even in a warped way, it makes what they do after less wrong, she continued. But cheating, it's never really about sex. It's about lack. About hunger they don't know how to feed. Julian nodded, but his heart didn't ache anymore. It was sharpening into something else. Resolve. He went home that night with a new goal. Not just to leave Issa, but to undo her. Not with violence, not with scandal, but with silence, exposure, and ruin. She had chosen to burn what they had. Julian would make sure the smoke reached everyone. Julian didn't leave. Not yet. That was the first part of the revenge. He stayed. Played the role. Kissed Issa in the mornings. Coffee for her. Listened when she complained about Caleb not replying fast enough, though she didn't know he knew. When she said she was stressed from deadlines, Julian would rub her shoulders and murmur comforting words, all while logging her every move. He made it seem like he had accepted the cracks in their relationship, that he was being mature and evolved about her need for space. It gave her comfort. She let her guard down. But beneath the surface, Julian moved like a tactician. He reached out to Issa's agency HR anonymously, using a newly created Gmail with fake credentials. Julian selected screenshots that proved she was sleeping with interns. It was just enough for suspicion to bloom. He didn't stop there. Julian found the hotel manager where she'd booked multiple meetings. Disguised as a private investigator running background checks, he requested timestamps and footage for certain dates, claiming it related to a lawsuit. Money did the rest. Within days, Julian had footage of Issa checking into hotel rooms with at least 2 different men. Once, she left in the same dress at 7 a.m., hair tangled. No shame on her face. He waited. Let her spiral deeper into her lies. Meanwhile, Julian was preparing the final blow. Not emotional. Not messy. Professional. Precise. Irrevocable. One night, he got home to find her dressed up. Red lipstick. High heels. Black slit dress. "Another client dinner," she chirped. He nodded, kissed her cheek. "Be safe," he whispered. "You look stunning." She paused for a split second, confused, then smiled, flattered. Julian watched her walk out the door. 10 minutes later, he opened the laptop and accessed the tracker he'd planted in her car 2 weeks ago. She didn't go to any client dinner. She went to Caleb's place. Julian copied the live footage to his cloud drive. He could hear her laugh on the tiny bug he had discreetly hidden in the car stereo. "Issa. He totally believed me. I told him it was an influencer dinner, Caleb. God, your husband is like oblivious. What does he even do again? Issa. Something boring. Doesn't matter." Julian didn't flinch. He pressed record. That was the night everything became real. That was the night Julian decided on the date of execution. The next week, Issa's company sent an email to all employees. "We are conducting a formal review regarding employee relationships within the company. During this period, all parties involved are asked to refrain from engaging in unofficial after-hours meetings with direct subordinates." Issa's expression while reading it was priceless. "Ugh," she muttered. "Some HR nonsense, probably because of Caleb and—" She cut herself off. Julian kept washing dishes. "What were you saying?" "Nothing," she replied quickly. "I mean, Caleb mentioned something, that's all." He dried his hands, kissed her temple, said nothing. Let her choke on her paranoia. The next phase was financial. Julian rerouted all joint account access. Quietly moved his savings into a separate secure account under his own name. He even sold some crypto at a high and locked the profits. Then he moved on to legal. His divorce lawyer helped him draft a prenup clause reinforcement citing adultery. They had no kids, no shared mortgage. The assets were clean, thanks to Julian's foresight. And finally, he uploaded the audio clips, the hotel footage, and the screenshots to an encrypted drive. Then printed them all, along with a single note. "You wanted excitement. I hope the fallout is thrilling." He dropped the package at Issa's office address, to her entire department. Not just HR. Then he walked into the courtroom with his lawyer and filed for divorce, named infidelity, provided evidence. The court would be merciless. That night, when Issa came home, Julian wasn't there. But her phone exploded with messages. Photos, clips, scandals, HR summoning her for questioning, colleagues whispering. When she finally called Julian in panic, screaming into the voicemail, all she got was the sound of his silence. He didn't speak to her again for weeks. She tried everything. Emails, calls, even showed up at his office, sobbing in the lobby. Security had to escort her out. She emailed again the next day. I was confused. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was a phase. I still love you. Please just talk to me. Julian forwarded it to his lawyer. He wasn't done yet. He contacted a few industry peers, branding consultants, marketing executives, a few CEOs he'd worked with before. Quietly asked if they had openings, not for himself, but to ensure none of them had space for Issa. He made sure the narrative was truthful, not vengeful, just revealing. Soon, her job hunt hit dead ends. Her reputation tarnished. She became a cautionary tale. Julian had done what she never expected. He didn't yell, he didn't fight, he ruined her, quietly, and now he was ready for closure, not reconciliation. 2 months had passed. The storm had ravaged Issa's life, but Julian, he stood in its eye, still calm and untouched by the debris she'd hurled into the sky. His lawyer had made quick work of the divorce filings. With the undeniable evidence, the judge had ruled in Julian's favor without hesitation. No alimony, no shared assets, no second chances. And yet, Issa kept trying. First came the apologies. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just craving attention. They made me feel like I mattered again. Julian didn't reply. Not once. Then came the guilt-tripping. You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible. You just worked and worked. I needed more. I never stopped loving you. I just lost myself. Still, Julian gave her nothing. She had gambled their life together for momentary thrill and lost. Then, Issa's sister Ria reached out. She met Julian at a cafe. Nervous, fidgeting with her ring. She's not okay, Julian, Ria said. She's spiraling. She's lost her job. Caleb outed everything. HR found the texts. She's being mocked by the whole industry. Her name's blacklisted in every firm she's applied to. Even the startups. Julian sipped his coffee slowly. She chose this. She's begging for a chance to explain. She already explained, he said, eyes narrowing. Every text, every hotel room, every word she spoke behind my back. That was her explanation. Ria leaned forward. She said she wanted to feel desirable again. Then, when she brought up the open marriage, it wasn't to hurt you. It was a warning. She was trying to tell you something was wrong. Julian's voice was low, controlled. She was trying to hurt me. She wanted to absolve herself in advance. That's why she brought it up, so she could cheat without calling it cheating. Ria sat back, speechless. Julian stood up. Tell her to stop contacting me or I'll file a restraining order next. He left the cafe without looking back. But the story didn't end there. 3 weeks later, Julian was at the gym when he noticed a woman in the weight room struggling with the machine. He stepped in, politely offered help. Thanks, she smiled. I never get the setting right. Her name was Delilah. She was a freelance photographer recently relocated to the city after a bitter split from her fiancé. They started talking. Slowly. Carefully. She wasn't like Issa. Delilah was grounded, funny, and raw. She didn't pretend to have it all together. She talked openly about heartbreak, shame, and healing. There were no games, no lies. And Julian, for the first time in months, he didn't feel like a shattered man pretending to function. He felt real again. They started seeing each other casually. Coffee, walks, a gallery opening, no labels, no expectations, just connection. Julian didn't tell her about Issa at first, but one night, as they lay on a picnic blanket under the stars in the city's quiet park, she touched his chest gently. You don't have to talk about it, Delilah said. But whatever hurt you, it's still sitting on your shoulders. He closed his eyes, exhaled. Then he told her everything. Every detail. Every scar. Delilah didn't flinch. She just took his hand. You didn't deserve any of that. Julian looked at her. Really looked at her. And realized something. He wasn't angry anymore. Not even at Issa. She'd imploded on her own. He had simply shown the world who she really was. And now, he was free. Meanwhile, Issa's world collapsed in silence. Her parents distanced themselves from the scandal. Her friends disappeared overnight. Her social media filled with vague posts about regret and growth. But no one cared. Caleb ghosted her after the HR fallout. One of the other interns had leaked her photos to senior leadership. Her resignation letter was accepted without hesitation and with a non-disclosure warning. She tried rebuilding. She even attempted to launch her own consulting agency. But her name was poisoned in every network that mattered. And still, she emailed Julian. Not for forgiveness, for validation. I just want to know if I ever mattered to you. If anything we had was real. Julian read it once, and for the first time since everything began, he wrote back. You mattered. That's why this hurts so much. That's why I'll never let you close enough to matter again. Then he blocked her one final time. Not out of hate, but out of peace. Winter came early that year. The first snow blanketed the city like a hush over old wounds. Julian stood at his new apartment window, fingers wrapped around a mug of black coffee, watching the world turn white. He hadn't just moved out of Issa's life. He had moved into an entirely different existence. There were no traces of her here, no framed wedding photos, no echoes in the walls, no scent clinging to pillows or drawers. Just calm, silence, and healing. Delilah had become a gentle, steady presence in his life. She never tried to replace the past or paper over it. Instead, she sat beside him while he sorted through the wreckage. Wordless when he needed quiet. Present when he needed space. One night, months into their budding relationship, Delilah asked something that no one had dared ask since the collapse. Did you ever think about staying? About forgiving her? Julian didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the city lights, thinking. I thought about why I stayed as long as I did, he said. Not because I believed her lies, but because I was still trying to love the version of her that no longer existed. Delilah nodded slowly. I get that. He looked at her, eyes softer than they'd been in a long time. The hardest part wasn't the cheating. It was realizing she made peace with hurting me long before I even knew I was bleeding. Far across the city, Issa's life was still in freefall. She had moved back into her childhood home temporarily after her savings dried up. Her father was polite but distant. Her mother kept offering unsolicited advice about bouncing back and reinventing herself, as if failure could be powdered over like makeup. The job applications went unanswered. Even freelance gigs disappeared once her name was Googled. The photos Caleb's friend had leaked resurfaced every time she tried to rebuild her presence. A cruel, permanent watermark on everything she touched. Desperate, Issa joined a forum for women seeking personal transformation. She posted anonymously, detailing her downfall under the pseudonym Luna Storm. But even there, the comments were brutal. You don't want forgiveness. You want to erase consequences. You weren't exploring. You were escaping. You didn't just cheat. You dismantled your partner's reality. She deleted the thread after 3 days. The truth had nowhere to hide. Not anymore. One morning, Issa received a letter. Not from Julian, from a private firm she'd once pitched to. They were launching a new campaign, and someone had submitted her name for a testimonial. But not as a consultant. As a case study. A warning tale. An anonymous example in their upcoming presentation titled, The Cost of Personal Brand. Branding in the Age of Scandal. Her jaw clenched. Her name wasn't directly mentioned, but the story matched hers exactly. Even the fake names they used were hauntingly similar. Julian hadn't just ended things. He'd made sure the lesson lingered. Back in Julian's world, healing wasn't linear, but it was real. He met Delilah's friends, one dinner at a time. He started painting again, something he'd given up years ago when life had become all deadlines and structure. He even traveled. Nothing exotic, just nearby cities, quiet towns, small joys. And most importantly, he no longer looked for Isa in passing crowds. She had become a ghost, a lesson, not a wound. Then came the unexpected. Nearly a year to the day since their separation, Julian received a letter in the mail. No return address, just his name, handwritten. Inside was a card. Simple, clean, ivory-colored. One sentence. I was the fire. You were the home I burned down. No signature, but he didn't need one. Julian stared at the words for a long time, heart silent. There was no satisfaction, no rage, just a strange, distant compassion for the woman she used to be, for the girl she still hadn't found within herself. He lit a match, held the card to it, watched it curl and blacken in the flame. Julian didn't seek revenge because he was cruel. He did it because he was done being collateral damage in someone else's story. He had given Isa loyalty, patience, love, every chance to come clean. She had repaid him with lies, betrayal, and selfishness. So he didn't just walk away. He walked through her lies, lit them on fire, and walked out the other side whole. And when people asked what happened to his marriage, he told them the truth. She wanted to feel alive. I wanted to build a life. We weren't the same story, just the same cover. As the snow continued falling, Julian and Delilah sat by the fireplace, sipping wine, music coming softly. He wasn't waiting for closure anymore. He'd become it.